welcome back. Ricky here. Alright, so this is my first knife comparison in 2019, and it's good to be back. So a number of you guys have actually written me and was asking me where I've been for the last few weeks, and quite honestly, I just needed to take some time off. There are a lot of changes that happened in my home, and I think it's a good time for everyone to kind of just stop and relax after the year is over. So I just spent some time just relaxing and enjoying my kids and my wife. A lot of people have been asking about the Miyabi Birch versus the Black and which one should they buy. The way I tested these knives, I basically used them in my kitchen for an entire month straight. They were the only knives in my kitchen, one at a time, so I didn't use them side by side. I used the Birchwood for a whole month, and then I used the Black for an entire month. That way I actually got an overall sense of how the knife performed in daily tasks. So this is the Miyabi Birchwood. Core steel is an SU2 microcarbide. Very hard, 63 to walk well. Edge retention is excellent. Out of the box sharpness is one of the sharpest knives I've ever gotten. The handle is made of a Carillion birchwood. Very beautiful look and feel. Nicely shaped. It's got a D-shaped handle, but a very ovalized D-shaped handle and a steel end cap. Great polishing on the rounded spine and the choil. The Damascus cladding is 101 layers. Technically it's 100 layers because you have 50 layers on each side, and then you have your core layer. So they call it 101 layers because they always add that core for the extra number 1. And overall, a very handsome knife, very well put together. Fit and finish is second to none. Currently on Amazon it's priced at $229. Not the cheapest knife out there, but still within reach of most people who are looking for a premium grade knife. Alright, so this is the Miyabi Black. This knife here was released last year. Alright, so the elephant in the room is the core steel. Miyabi advertises this knife as using a Cryodor microcarbide powder steel with a heat treatment of 66. It's ZDP 189. I know, it's strange that Miyabi would not market this knife with a ZDP logo or ZDP insignia somewhere, but it is made of ZDP 189. I think it would be a smart move from a marketing standpoint to actually place that on their knives, but for some reason they've opted not to do that. With the ZDP, you've got a 66 Rockwell, which is insanely high, and that's definitely the highest I've had here in my studio. And the handle uses a black ash. It's got essentially the same shaping as the Birchwood. It's a slightly thinner handle, at least on this sample it is, but the overall D-shaped ovalized handle, very comfortable to hold. And the black ash is really nice. It's a bit more dense, and so it makes the knife just a few ounces heavier than the Birchwood. In terms of Damascus cladding, you've got a 66 layer Damascus cladding on each side, so you have a total of 132 layers on the knife, or technically 133 layers when you count the core as the extra layer. But you got 66 layers on each side. It gives the knife a little bit more depth to it than the Birchwood. And the pattern of the Damascus is more horizontal, or it runs along the parallels of the knife versus a little bit more squiggly lines. Basically less of a linear pattern on the Birchwood relative to the Black. Keep in mind, the Damascus cladding has nothing to do with the overall knife's performance, at least in terms of edge retention and edge sharpness. It does, or it can affect the knife's slicing ability, and actually we'll get into that as we review this knife. Blade height from the spine to the heel, they're both 44 millimeters. So when I talk about knives out of the box sharpness or sharpness after a sharpening, this is the PT50A, and it's a knife scale, or essentially it's a very high calibrated digital scale that is used to more or less measure the force that a knife produces to cut a filament that sits right here. And so this is how I test my knives. I don't have a fancy $100,000 catcher machine where I can cut, hundreds and hundreds of sheets of paper every single day. So on the Edronut PT50A, the lower the number, the less resistance it took to actually produce a cut of the filament. The out-of-the-box sharpness of these two knives were incredible. The Birchwood achieves a score of 121, which is, I think, one of the sharpest, if not the sharpest knife out of the box I've ever gotten. And the Black received a score of 140. Not the lowest score, but certainly very respectable and definitely up there in the top 10 of the sharpest knives out of the box. After 3 or 4 weeks of using both these knives, I did notice something that was very particular on the Birchwood. The Birchwood felt sharper and just much easier to cut on large ingredients, especially starchy ingredients like potatoes and your yams, and even things like spaghetti squash. And so that kind of just stuck out in my mind, and kind of figure out why that's the case. And then I decided to take them back into the studio back here and do another edge cut test on the PT50A. And here's what I found out. the edge on the Birchwood was rated at 246, while the Miyabi was rated at 297. So I wasn't crazy. The Birchwood was actually sharper than the black after the 30 days. So I thought, how could that possibly be? I decided to do one more test. And so just to see how this would actually play out, I took both knives and stropped them on my rolled buffalo strop with a 9,000 grit compound from Harold's. It wasn't very scientific. I basically stropped for about a minute on each knife and simply did another cut test. And here is where things get really interesting. On the PT50A, the black now received a score of 151. The Birchwood received a score, get this, of 187. If I'm doing my math correctly, the Birchwood has a resistance score increase of 55% versus the black, which has an increase of resistance by about 7%. So here is my interpretation of this data. Well, first off, I would say that out of the box sharpness, or even at absolute sharpness, I would say that the Birchwood has the ability, or the SG2 core steel has the ability to get a sharper edge than ZDP. However, based on this very simple test here, the ZDP has a far better edge retention ability than SG2. So is ZDP far superior than SG2? Well, sort of. If you're only looking at pure edge retention, then I would say yes. But if you're looking at overall experience, I have found that the SG2 core steel on the Birchwood is slightly more responsive and more lively on the cutting board than the ZDP. Also, the number one thing that I would say that would keep this knife from being a top pick in my mind relative to the Birchwood is the Damascus cladding. Now, the cladding on the black is beautiful. It's cool, it's black, it's dark, it's really nice looking. I have found that when cutting large starchy ingredients like your potatoes and your yams, your cantaloupes, your honeydew, I have found that the slide of the knife on the black sticks to the ingredients a lot more than the Birchwood did. And so for me, that was actually something that I did not expect. It behaved a lot like the Kramer Damascus SG2. Even though the Kramer's SG2 is much worse than this knife, it does have that same stickiness. But don't be alarmed, that stickiness does go away after a few weeks of washing and using and washing. But in the beginning, it does feel sticky and it will throw you off a little bit, particularly when you're looking at a knife that costs $350. So which one should you buy and who are they for? Well, obviously they're for the knife enthusiasts who love sharp knives. You love knives that have great edge holding ability, great fit and finish, and they look very different from your traditional kitchen knives. Both these knives are very beautiful, very handsome in their own way. You're not going to be disappointed with either knives. They are both very, very good knives. My pick though is going to be the Birchwood. I think the Birchwood is an overall more compelling knife. With these two particular samples, I found that the handle on the Birchwood is slightly more rounded and about maybe a half a millimeter wider than the ash or the black ash on the black. So I find that the handle on the Birchwood is slightly more comfortable than the black. I also find that the stickiness of the Damascus cladding to me is more of a hindrance than a plus. Even though it looks really nice and most people would want to buy a knife that has more cladding material or more cladding layers, that is not necessary in this case. It does not add any sort of performance benefit. So to me, the high polish of the Birchwood actually makes a lot more sense. Now the core steel is really nice on the ZDP. I have to admit, I love the fact that a knife can hold an edge like a ZDP, but to me it's not worth the sacrifice, especially when you're looking at a $100 price difference or $120 price difference between the two knives. So to me, I'm willing to get a knife that needs to be sharpened a little bit more frequently, and you know, with SG2 with the heat treatment of 63, you can sharpen this knife once a month and you'll be fine. You can do it once a week if you really want to. SG2 is a really great balance between having a really good edge retention, being able to get a really good edge, and also being relatively affordable when you're comparing it to other high powder super steels out there. So dollar per dollar spent, I think that the Birchwood is a more compelling knife. However, if you were eyeing the black, go out and get it. It's a great knife. The Damascus cladding is only slightly stickier than, let's say, ideal, because I used the Birchwood first and then I hopped on this knife, and so it just felt stickier. I need to make something really clear. This is me splitting hairs between the knives. Literally, if I didn't have these knives side by side and I simply grabbed one of them and used it, I would love it. You're not going to find many knives at $350 with the same level of craftsmanship, fit and finish, and with ZDP 189 as a core steel. And for those who don't know these knives, I will have them linked in the video description. You guys can check them out on your own time. Alright guys, that'll be it for this video. Thank you for being here. I'll catch you in the next one. I'm gonna show you guys something really special. But lots of folks have been asking for alternatives for Masamoto KSs because, as you guys know, they're completely sold out, supposedly for the next 3 years or something like that. And according to Masamoto, when I was in Tokyo, or I was in Japan not long ago, they say that they may even discontinue that knife at some point, if it hasn't been discontinued already. So I had to go and do my due diligence and find some alternatives for some Masamotos, and here they are. So I don't have them all unboxed, and I don't know which one is exactly. Oh, here we go. So we have the Doi, yes, blue number 2, 240 millimeters. We have the Moritaka. This is the Moritaka, 250 millimeters. Very nice box. We have the Konosuke GS Plus right here, and it is 240 millimeters with the ebony handle. We have the Ikeda. The Ikeda I'm very interested about because it's using Aogami Super, and it has a very beautiful profile, and yeah, really nice box. See, the Ikeda 240 millimeters, and then we have the Okada white number 2. See, and the Okada is actually made by, I think, one of the founders of the Takufu's Knife Village compound, which I've been to when I was in Japan, and I think Ikeda is one of his students as well. So I think these two knives are going to be very interesting to look at. And yeah, so these are only 5 that I have been able to pick up because they were in stock. They are, like I said, there are about 5 more that I think really fits the bill. Once they come in stock, I will pick them up. Let me know what you guys think of the idea of picking up some KS alternatives. I know a lot of folks really want the Masamoto KSs, but you can't get them. This is the next best thing I can do for you, is finding what knife fits that bill. So thumbs up if you guys like the series idea, and if you guys want to see the actual unboxings of these knives, let me know in the comments, and then you guys can actually see the knives and kind of understand why these knives were picked. Ah, here we are. This is a Doi. This is Doi 240 millimeter. Doi. Is it Doi or Doi? It's Doi. It's Doi. It's Japanese. It's Doi. So let me know what you guys think of the kind of the KS. So what am I saying?